All right, I'm going to go ahead and get the Lancaster Affordable Housing Trust meeting started. We are calling this meeting to order on Thursday, April 4th, 2024 at 7:06 p.m.
7:03.
You have 7:03? Okay, you're secretary. That's fine with me. 7:03 p.m.
Well, that's what my computer says. And, I believe what big government tells me.
No. So we're going to go ahead and get underway. This meeting is being recorded and it will be broadcast on Sterling-Lancaster cable TV. And it will be available on Town Hall streams as well. We'll start with a roll call attendance. Select Board Representative and Trustee Jason Allison.
Here.
Trustee Carolyn Reed.
Here.
Trustee and Secretary Frank Streeter.
Here.
Trustee Deborah Williams.
Here.
Ex officio trustee and our Director of Health and Human Services, Kelly Dolan.
Here.
And trustee and chair Victoria Petracca here. So we are all present, and with that we can get underway. Under our first agenda item and administration, I need to announce something that makes me very sad, but also I'm very happy for her. Carolyn Reed is moving, and so she will have to leave the trust as she will no longer be a Lancaster resident. And I can't thank her enough. All her background, her knowledge of affordable housing, her day job and professional life has brought so much to this trust. I'm just so grateful that she stepped up and joined. She's not leaving tonight. We get to have her for at least one more meeting.
June or July is when I'm moving. Yeah. So
June and July. So
yeah.
So Carolyn was kind enough to let me know that and let me know very early, which I so appreciate also. So we have time to find a replacement trustee. So I just wanted to announce that we do have an upcoming vacancy. And for anyone who watches this recording, know that the process would be to submit a letter to the select board. Our trustee positions are select board appointed. And then you would just simply state your interest and reasons and motivations for joining the Affordable Housing Trust. So
Qualifications are good too.
yes, your qualifications, your background, all of that. So we will have you, Carolyn, this is our April meeting. We'll have you in May, possibly June.
Yeah, I'll still be here in June. Yeah.
Okay. All right. All righty. So
Can we ask you what part of the country you're moving to?
I'm not going far. I'm going to Lunenburg. So it's not very far. My partner and I are going to move in together. And that's where we'll be. I know.
Oh.
So it's very exciting. I'm excited. I'm very sad. I'll miss you guys. I've loved working on this committee. As I told Victoria, it's such an action committee and we've done a lot of work, and it's been just great to be with you all and know you all.
And you can come to meetings anytime. I'm sure Victoria will keep sending you agendas.
Exactly. That's right. You can Zoom
I'm happy to
in.
help in any way.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. All right. Moving on, approval of meeting minutes. So thank you, Frank, for getting those 3 sets of minutes out. I did have a chance to review them, but I don't want to assume that others did because we got them late this afternoon. So it's the pleasure of the board. If you would like us to table them because you haven't had enough time to review, that's perfectly fine. I have reviewed them. I did give Frank a couple of suggested edits.
Which I have made.
Thank you, Frank. Did others have a chance to review the minutes from Frank?
I did.
It's nodding yes. I don't know if Carolyn, Jason, Kelly, you're ex officio, but you could always chime in.
I did not, but I trust that they're perfect.
Okay. Thank you, Carolyn.
Yet another reason we'll miss you.
I make a motion to accept the 3 sets of minutes.
Is there
Second.
a second from Jason? Any discussion? I would just like to say that the suggested edits that I gave to Frank were on Feb 1 minutes, nothing on Feb 15, and then something on March 7th. They're fairly, I think they're fairly minor. I'm happy to state what
They were very minor. I didn't see the meaning of any sentence change.
So if there's no further discussion, we'll do a roll call vote on meeting minute acceptance. Trustee Allison,
Aye, yes.
Trustee Reed,
Yes.
Trustee and Secretary Streeter,
Yes.
Trustee Williams,
Yes.
Trustee and Chair Victoria Petracca, yes. So thank you, Frank. You'll get those over to the town clerk, I trust, and post
Yep.
it. Okay, great. Moving on. We have a scheduled appearance this evening. Community Scale is with us. Nels Nelson, who's a principal, is on the Zoom. And as we all know on the trust, and for anyone watching this meeting, the trust selected Community Scale from an RFP process to help us update the Lancaster Housing Production Plan. So they will be spearheading that effort with lots of input from not only the trust, but other town boards and town residents. It's a process that will go on for several months. Nels, I'd like to give you an opportunity to maybe introduce yourself. We read the proposal. We obviously selected your firm, so you don't need to sell us on Community Scale. But if you want to just introduce yourself briefly, and then we can perhaps jump in together with Brian is here, our planning director. I'd like to review the scope of work, timeline, and just get you rolling and answer any questions that you have right out of the gate.
Perfect. That sounds like a really good agenda. Thank you to the Affordable Housing Trust for having me tonight. My name is Nels Nelson. I'm a planner with Community Scale. Prior to that, I was with Stantec Urban Places for about 10 years. We're a shop that's focused on housing and zoning. We've been working a lot across Massachusetts, but we also work across the country. And we're really excited about this housing production plan. So thank you for selecting us. And yeah, I'd love to ask you some questions and talk through the work plan as you see fit.
Nels, did you want to share your screen this evening? You should
Yeah,
be able
if I could.
Yeah, you should be able to.
Thank you. Let me first turn on this. Okay. Here we go. All right, so as you're aware, we're just starting this housing production plan. Maybe I can skip ahead to the work plan because that's maybe the most obvious place to start. So we started just a couple weeks ago with Brian. Right now we're going through a literature review process. We also want to start interviewing stakeholders in April and May. So we'll be reaching out to some of you directly. We also want to talk to your planning board and ZBA. And we're also taking suggestions for other people that we should interview. And I'll come back to that point. We're also going to start immediately after this meeting with the housing needs assessment. And so this meeting is really going to help set the groundwork for what form that takes, what those goals are. And the ambition is to have that in a good place to share publicly by the 5th of June, when there's a public meeting for the strategic master plan, which we will also use as our first public meeting. So to coincide with that, and take some minutes from that meeting to present an update on the housing needs assessment and show how we're having continuity between the two planning efforts, and get those people's attention while they're already there. We'll also be looking at your constraints and limitations. in terms of the affordable housing goals, we're going to take a look at the community survey that the strategic master plan put out. If we need more input, we can issue another survey. We want to know from you what your goals are in terms of affordable housing. And then with the housing needs assessment and the goals together, we're going to be working with Jeff Levine, who's on our team from Levine Planning Strategies, on the strategy development, have another public meeting, and then go into the creation of a housing production plan document, which we aim to give you a final presentation of in September and then submit to the EOHLC in November. Any questions on that before I move on?
No, you want us to hold our comments until you get to this, or okay. That's
Yeah,
fine.
let me come back to this. So if I just skip back up, yeah, you know me now. These are my teammates. Here's Jeff Levine. He's a sub-consultant on this team. Here's some of the other work that we've done. So I think we all know what the purpose of a housing production plan is. This one aims to go from 2025 to 2030. And we know that at least we want to achieve the goal of 10% on the SHI. So to begin with, we looked at where you currently stand in terms of housing and housing change. So this is zooming out from 2010 past 2020 to 2022 when the most recent census data on the number of households came out, and then looking ahead to 2030. And there's a number of forecasts that look forward. So in the housing production plan guidance, they have some benefits for achieving 0.5% annual growth and 1% annual growth. We also looked at what the trends extended would be if you just built as much housing in the next 10 years as you had built in the last 10 years. And there's also a forecast in here from MAPC from 2014. So within this cone of possibility between 2022 and 2030, it's somewhere between 124 and 393 new units. So that's between a 4 and 13% growth for Lancaster. Now, what gets interesting is that we had the chance to look at the pipeline already, and there's between 224 and 278 units, depending on how the landing, what option is moved forward with the landing. So you already have a lot of growth in the pipeline. So in one respect, I can say, good job to the Affordable Housing Trust. You've been making a lot of progress, and that's exciting to see. But for me, it begs the question of what's the ambition for the next 5 years? Is something like 341 units or 11% growth, is that about where you want to end up? Or is it more than that? Is it less than that? And that's going to help us also gauge the extent to which the SHI needs to be augmented in addition to, like I said, what's already in the pipeline. And I can take a little bit of a more fine-grained look at that. So 2019 is when the data was done for the last housing production plan. You were at about 5.4%. Right now in 2024, using an estimate for how many housing units you have. We don't exactly know because, like I mentioned, the last ACS is from 2022. So this is assuming that you have, again, that kind of organic growth. You're about at 5.8% now. And so by 2030, with the SHI units in your pipeline, which is 192 units, you would already be at 11.8%. So again, kudos to you for getting a significant number of SHI units in the pipeline. Of course, that could be a little bit lower. There could be, if the option at the landing is chosen, that's 50 SHI units instead of 100 and something, that could be more like 96. But again, the question the question for me right now is, in addition to what's in the pipeline, what are you considering in terms of organic growth? So as it stands right now, if we were to, again, just look at trends extended, the amount of growth that you've had in the last 10 years for just carrying that forward until 2030, in addition to what you've already got in the pipeline, and that's a combination of the market and the SHI, you would have about 86 additional organic growth units or units that would be permitted in addition to what's already in the pipeline, which is about 14 units per year. And so, yeah, are you thinking about more than that, less than that? This all might sound a little bit abstract, but anyway, I found it to be a very interesting starting point, just given the fact that you've already have such an extensive pipeline. So I can just leave it there and be very interested to hear what you think.
Nels, I have a question. Can you back up for a second to the slide just before this?
Sure.
In the title, it says housing units forecast, and it looks like these are, looking at the first dot on the graph, these are all housing units, year-round housing units, not affordable. This is just market rate, everything combined. Is that right?
That's correct. So in terms of the SHI, what matters for the denominator is the total number of housing units.
Right.
So right now, you have a denominator of some number. Forget what it is exactly, but about I think it's like
We have
30,
it.
yeah, 30, just over 3,000.
Well, okay, we can go back and discuss that. We have the number, but
Yeah,
I don't want to interrupt you. Okay.
And so the question for me is, what type of growth are you anticipating between now and 2030 so that we can estimate what the future denominator is going to be, and
Right.
that will help scale the amount of SHI units
Yep.
that you need in order to achieve safe harbor and achieve the goals of the housing production plan. So again,
Right.
right now, all things considered, you're kind of achieving your goals already with the pipeline. And so is that sufficient? Are you looking for more? That's it.
Okay. Do we want to go back to that outline maybe where you had highlighted
Sure.
some things?
Yep.
Questions? Okay. Trustees, just jump in. I don't want to monopolize by any means, so just jump in when you have things to add and say, and whether they're questions, comments, constructive criticism. It's okay to disagree. So I see the first thing that you highlighted, the stakeholder interviews. Actually, before we get to that, under literature review, do you have our current housing production plan?
Yeah.
Did you find
Yes,
that?
we've reviewed that.
Okay, great. And I just, a note on that, I remember when we were working on that, we thought we were doing 2020 to 2025, and the state had us correct that because when we submitted it, it was 2019. They corrected it and told us it had to say 2019 on it because it would effectively be approved in 2019.
Yep.
So, and we really liked the round number of 2020. We thought that was really nifty to have 2020 to 2025. But the state said no, because you're approving it, or your town and the state would be approving it in 2019. And I only mention that, Nels, because I think you said we would be doing 2025 to 2030. I really like, just as I liked 2020, but I think that Phil DiMartino at the state, who is, I don't know if he's still the guru for all things housing production plan related, but in the past they were forcing us to start it. The year had to be the year that we were submitting it. I just wanted to put a little asterisk next to that. If you want to look into that.
Brian and I had a chat about that, and I think we were both being optimistic that we could try and stretch
Yeah.
another year out of this, but
Yeah.
I think you're right. So I can reach out to Phil just to check.
Okay.
Given that we're submitting quite late in the year.
Yeah, we would prefer it be 2020, I think. I mean, I don't mean to speak for the whole trust. I personally would prefer that it be 2020 because you get more life out of it, but
Yeah.
I think last time we kicked it back.
2024, like this plan, but your current plan goes through 2024.
It expired in March.
That's true. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, well, I'll ask Phil and we'll adjust accordingly.
Yeah. Okay. So under the stakeholder interviews, some boards and residents that come to mind, and I don't think I have an exhaustive view on it, but I would like the Commission on Disabilities to be involved. I don't think we have nearly enough adapted units. And also the COA. We've got a long wait list for senior housing, and I think the COA should be a part of this process. So those two just right away came to mind, the Commission on Disabilities and the COA, the Council on Aging. So, but any other suggestions from trustees? Who do we want to be sure we proactively seek out? Or any other boards that come to mind? Whether they could be land use, they could be, special interest based. The sooner we get in front of them, the better.
I would, excuse me, note that the master plan is referenced in a few places, and interacting with that, I think, will be really helpful. I mean, some of this is there are great development constraints just in terms of where, if we wanted X new units, where would they go? And, some of that is going to be in the master plan already. I would also, and Victoria, I know you'll say the same, caution us not to rest in our laurels, because you never know what happens to whatever's in the pipeline today. Although Nels's comments are, of course, very encouraging.
Yeah, I agree. Things can fall off the wagon. Developers go away, things like that. Kelly, can you hear us? Are you on? Kelly Dolan?
I am.
Kelly, I think that this kind of overlaps a bit with what you were talking about with forums. Are there groups in your role as Director of Health and Human Services for Lancaster? Are there population groups that you feel we should be especially sensitive to and reaching out to? In addition to this list, this says Affordable Housing Trust Planning Board, ZBA. We just added Council on Aging and Commission on Disabilities. Any other groups come to mind, Kelly?
No, the only thing I would say I'd add to that is I was thinking of my veteran service agent. I would just like for him to be a part of this as well, but encompass the three major pillars in regards to the HHS department. So I'm very thankful for you mentioning the COA and COD.
Okay, and it's Rick Vautour, right, for the Veterans Services?
We actually have a new person. We are a district of 1 now. We were a district of 3. So I have a person named Christopher Davis. I can connect you with him and get this information to you all.
So maybe it makes sense to add, let's add that, Nels, Veteran Services. Okay, and it's Christopher Davis that we'll connect with on that. All right, great. Okay, let's just move
Victoria,
on.
We have not talked about it as a trust, so I don't know if it's relevant here or for us to talk about it first and then try to circle back. But a lot of towns are moving to partnerships with Conservation Commission for land trusts to be able to expand affordable housing.
Carolyn, tell us a bit more about that. I'm intrigued. How does that work?
So I'm just learning more about it, but There are towns where conservation commissions might have smaller parcels of land that might not be linked to other lands. And they turn it into a land trust, and they'll lease it for affordable housing in segments of 99-year leases, so that the homeowners will own the home, but that conservation trust would still own the underlying land.
That sounds really interesting.
It's just
No.
another way to expand affordable housing.
Right, right. No, for sure. Nels, can we capture that in our stakeholder list?
I'm typing some notes as we speak.
Okay, great.
That's an
Thank you
interesting
so
idea.
much, Carolyn.
Yeah, thank you.
Such a great suggestion. Okay, and our conservation agent position is vacant right now, so this would be something to bring up with them, but also with Tom Seidenberg at the Conservation Commission. So, okay.
Victoria, our
Yes.
new conservation agent is starting on the 16th.
Oh, we found someone. That's fantastic.
And according to Brian, we got someone excellent.
Oh, I'm so happy. That's great. The last I knew it was vacant, so that's a great update. Good. So that would be somebody, Nels, to connect with then on that point. All right. Good stuff. So housing needs assessment, more on that soon. Constraints and limitations assessment. I don't have any comments on these. Trustees, jump in if you do. Task 2, community survey. Yeah, leverage the strategic master plan. I heard you mention we may need to do a housing specific survey. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Housing goals. I would say yes, we definitely want to achieve safe harbor, but I don't think I think a goal that we should have in mind in our production plan is providing housing for as diverse a population as possible. And, not simply meeting a number, but that, we don't have, for example, one thing that we've talked a lot about at the trust is we don't have very many deeply affordable units at a lower area median income. We have a wait list for senior units. There's some bespoke populations that come to mind. We were talking earlier about the folks with a variety of disabilities, not just mobility impairment, but they could be cognitive disabilities as well. So I'm not sure how to articulate all that, but
I think at a higher level, we want enough affordable housing to meet the needs of the town.
Yeah, thank you, Carolyn. Yeah.
So go beyond the 10% until we're meeting what the town needs.
I'd like to also think that we're meeting our housing goals in environmentally sustainable ways as well. And best practices. All right, if there's no more discussion on that, we can keep going. Task 3, strategy development to work with Jeff Levine. Public meetings, June 5th. So June 5th, I take it, is our next public forum for the strategic master plan. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. And Brian and I were chatting that could be a good time to use the fact that all these people will be gathered to also present the findings from the housing needs assessment and do some kind of interactive exercise around the housing production plan to get people's input at that time.
Right, that's a Wednesday. June 5th is a Wednesday. This is like a Wednesday night in an auditorium type arrangement.
It's if I can, Victoria, I think we have tentative 2 dates, 4th or 5th. It could be the 5th. We haven't, and it's going to be actually in the church. The Bullfinch Church, the one right next to the town hall?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay, so it looks like we're gonna hold it there in 2 parts. It'll be a data or, share the the draft of the master plan, but then also have a type of community celebration or something, where, to be able to use the outdoor portion of the pavilion or something, whatever they call that. So that's in the early plans, stages of planning, but it's, either the 4th or the 5th. Oh, when is the 4th a night for, when is the June Affordable Housing Trust meeting?
Our meeting would be on Thursday, the 6th, the first Thursday of the month.
Okay, so I think we were talking either the 4th or the 5th. So I'm not sure maybe we'll have it as the 4th and the 5th as a rain date or something, that could be.
Okay.
Well, we'll nail that down soon.
So I'm just curious, so we would be in like the church sanctuary for this?
I don't think
I'm
that's
so
successful. I
confused.
think it's going to be I've been in the church once.
Okay.
Didn't want to stay too long. It may have fallen in. But I think, no, what is that? Is that they have like a community center or something next to it, or
Where the Montessori school is?
is
In
that
the-
where it is? I don't know.
Meeting room?
I don't think the church itself is accessible.
Maybe I should speak to this one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
go ahead,
Frank
Frank.
is as a member, maybe, yeah.
So here's my understanding, and I'm just searching for the emails that have been going back and forth that somehow I've managed to misfile. But basically, the thought was a presentation in the sanctuary because in the middle of the week, the community hall isn't available because of the Montessori school, but a presentation in the sanctuary and then something informal after that around the fire pit, maybe with s'mores or that sort of thing to have a more general discussion. But I believe that is supposed to be happening within the next 2 weeks, not in June.
That event is supposed to be happening in the next 2 weeks?
Yes, because it's to gather data for the strategic plan,
Right,
the master plan.
right.
So
Yep.
it'd be pointless to do that in June.
Well, Frank, I think the idea of June is the presenting of the final plan.
Yes,
We're continuing to collect
but that's
data.
not at First Church. I don't believe there's any presentation at First Church beyond the gathering of information that people have been talking about, that of which you are well aware.
Right, but no, I mean, we're talking about the third and final community forum,
Yes.
which will be in June. We're talking now in terms of presenting the draft to the planning board. That's going to be in April. But
No, I think we're talking about two different things. So George Franz has sent around emails talking about arranging for a third, community forum to get input data for the plan, not to present the plan, which would be happening in June.
I thought it was due in June.
I'm not aware of that, Frank. I don't know what.
Right.
What?
Well, I'm just looking for these various emails that have been going back and forth about First Church, and George is really the one who's been handling all this. I'm just recalling emails I can now not find.
Yeah, I think the idea is that we're doing the survey, but I don't know of any other inputs we're gathering that we have set up, especially in some type of forum. So I'll connect. I'll see if I can find out from George to see if I can get clarification on that. But as far as I know, with my discussion with Wayne, that's not what we're doing.
Okay, and I could be completely wrong about this in terms of what they were talking about, because there was a discussion of what we could do to get the data, in advance for an input as opposed to presenting it as an output.
Okay, I'm going to interject here. I think
let me just leave that to George. I'm going
Yeah.
to sign off on that.
Okay, I will just say, as far as our housing production plan goes, I want to make sure that I mentioned something else that dovetails here. We can do something with Kelly. Kelly Dolan has been talking about some forums. She brought this up at our last meeting. And I think that, you know, more opportunities are better than fewer opportunities. So if something works out with the planning board and, you know, we have people in a room for the strategic master plan and we want to get some more input on this, I'm all for it. But I don't want it to necessarily just be that. And I think, you know, Nels, we should probably do our own forum for input. I don't want to be just tied to the strategic master plan forum, because they're on a different time scale. Like, that's already started and it's due well before this report is due. So I think we should plan a community forum that is entirely housing. I don't want to just be a caboose on the strategic master plan. Don't get me wrong. If we can, you know, come to the strategic master plan and be a part of it and talk about it, great. But I want to make sure that the housing production plan gets full attention at a forum. Does that make sense?
I think that's exceptionally prudent.
Yeah.
And I would think that the thing to do might be to briefly appear at those forums and to just say, hey, housing production plan, we're going to be gathering data. You know, you're interested enough to
Right.
come to this, so please give us data. I believe there's going to be a final community input meeting. I found the email the week of April 18th or 19th at the church, but that turns out to be school vacation week. So it's nothing more than conceptual at this point.
Okay. All right. So I'm still on, this is task 3, implementation strategy. So public meetings, I mean, the June 5th for sure, let's go make an appearance and sort of squeeze out what we can at that meeting. That's actually the strategic master plan meeting. But Nels, if you and Brian and I, and maybe with Kelly Dolan could get some dates going for a housing specific forum, let's do that. Can you jot that down?
Yeah, I've taken a note of it.
Okay, great.
So yeah, we're scoped for 2 public meetings. The first one, at least in the work, our proposal was to communicate the results of the housing needs assessment, share the goals and priorities, start giving some ideas about site selection.
Yep.
I think some of that is going to be pointing to things that are already in your pipeline, but like you say, that's not the end all be all. There has to be some others as well. So not all of your eggs are in the same basket.
Yeah.
So that's the first one. The second one would be more of moving forward beyond that, reviewing a short list of sites, being more focused on the real actions, let's say, from the housing production plan. So, we can have another conversation about how we want to shape these 2 meetings. And yeah, maybe one of them is overlapping with, the fact that you already have some people in the room, and the other one is standalone, or they could both be standalone. But I think that's a conversation we also want to have with Brian. So,
Okay, sounds good. So we'll talk and then come back to the Housing Trust at the next meeting with our suggested 2 meetings. Okay, great. Task 4, housing production plan document, final presentation and submission to the state. On that final presentation, I just want to be clear on something. We have to present this to both the planning board and the select board, and I have no idea if that will be one presentation or 2. But I just wanted to make sure that was clear, that we do have to have approval from both of those boards. Or at least we did when we did the last one. I don't know if the policies have changed at the state level, but Before, you had to have your approval from both planning board and select board before submitting it to the state. So do you typically, have you done this in one fell swoop, or is it, when we did it last time, we presented to each board individually and got feedback from both boards separately. So I just wanted, we don't have to decide it tonight. I just wanted to put a little bookmark there that my understanding is that we have to do a presentation at both of those boards. So, all right. Anything else on this outline that we should go over, Nels, tonight?
No, that's plenty of input for me. So yeah, I hear you about, maybe that final number in 2030 as the denominator isn't the end all be all, and we're going to be more focused on addressing levels of cost burden and deficiencies in certain focus group type housing, and that will be the factor that governs kind of how the housing production plan gets shaped. If I'm repeating it back to you correctly.
Yes, you are. That's great. No, I think you articulated it really well. Our 2020 census for year-round housing units, just quickly before we sign off on this topic tonight, 2,736. That's the number that we're operating off of, and we're at 6.21% right now. That's in the SHI that I sent along.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
maybe this isn't a plan that goes to 2030 anymore, and it's a plan that goes to 2029. But I think that we should think about an SHI percentage that
Yes.
factors in how much housing you'll have in 2030 as part of this
Yeah,
plan.
I think it's brilliant. It's great. And I mean, I guess my last question is, should we plan on having you back at our next meeting so you can check in with us, and if there are things that we need to discuss as a trust, I think I'd like to just go ahead and pencil you in if you're amenable to that. We meet again on May 2nd. We always meet on the first Thursday of the month, unless there's a burning issue that comes up, or we can tack on another meeting, but typically we're the first Thursday of the month, and it might be smart for us to just go ahead and assume that you'll be on the agenda for anything that needs to be discussed with the trust. Progress update, status update, what do you think? That'll be Thursday, the second at 1 o'clock.
You should have the housing production plan on the agenda, whether I'm there or you're answering some questions I sent in advance and looking at some material I sent in advance. We can.
Sure, that's fine too. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. We will definitely have it on the agenda, and we'll go from there. If you need to be here, we'll arrange for that. If you don't, we can, discuss and get the feedback to you. So.
Great.
All right. Is there anything else on this topic this evening? I'm not seeing any hands or anything. If not, Nels, you're welcome to stick with us for the remainder of the meeting. Feel free to sign off. It's totally up to you, but we're going to move on unless you have anything else for us.
No, it was great to meet you all, and I look forward to working together. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Nels. We're excited to work with you as well.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nels.
Okay. That was our scheduled appearance. Oh, Kelly is clapping. I thought she had her hand up. She's clapping. Next up is updates to our SHI pipeline. We'll do this in order of the number of affordable units. So on the 40R, I do not have an update. All I know is that Capital Group has not submitted their MIPA filing yet. I think that's the next major hurdle. And I think we said at our last meeting, Bob DiPietri had said it would be probably now in April. So, Brian, do you have any updates on Capital Group for us by chance?
No, not pertaining that they are coming in. I don't know if this has any bearing on it, but Frank and I know that they're coming in to do this minor land swap. They're still working on their water connections. They seem to be
Brian, that's 696.
Oh, Capital Group.
She meant about Capital Group. Capital Group is in what could charitably describe as a holding pattern.
Right. Okay.
Before the planning board simply to nail down their zoning for the next 7 years so the town can't take the zoning away from them. I'm sure they would love to build something and love to do a big project, but I'm not hearing anything that says that they're about to do so.
Right. Sorry, I'm still getting those two mixed up.
It's okay, Brian. It's okay. Everybody's doing their best.
It's easy, Brian. 696 is the one that's going forward.
Right. And Capital Group is not, right.
Well, they're taking their time.
Yeah, right. Okay. They have their other reasons. Okay, yes. So no.
So we have to assume that they're going to do their MIPA thing as they said in April.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But
Okay.
if you probability adjust the number of new units, they might not be first on your list.
Okay. Well, I'm going to look at glass half full. I'm being a positive person, Frank.
They'll come.
Next, Neck Farm Estates, 13 Neck Road. This is Chapter 40B comprehensive permit. I just believe that I was not able to attend the last hearing, but I assume that this is still winding its way through for the stormwater and traffic. I was not there at the last hearing, but Brian, could you give us a quick summary of that?
Sure. So the last meeting was focused entirely on traffic and parking and traffic flow. And so we had, so now we've had the traffic plan submitted with the application. We had Vanass Associates do a peer review, and the applicant came back with their responses. So right now, it looks like, so some of the sticking points is really the narrow driving lane, the number of parking spaces, and the lack of any area at all for snow storage. And then, of course, there's also the question of, say like the police chief for one is very, he really doesn't, he doesn't want to see any on-street parking there because of this particular configuration of the streets. And that is not, that is a high crash, what do they call it? A high crash area. There's only been 4 crashes in the last 5 years, but proportionate to the amount of traffic there, that it's still counted as a high, it's a dangerous intersection. So a lot of the discussion was on that. What some of the improvements we're pushing for, and we think that well, I shouldn't say we, but the zoning board and the traffic consultants and some of the comments that were said at the meeting, we may be looking for we have a sense that they will return with a revised parking plan, which is going to turn the circulation into one way, one from coming in from Neck Road or vice versa. And then the parking spaces would be angled parking. So they would lose 1 or 2, maybe 3 spaces, but they would still be within the typical amount of spaces per unit spaces. Right now they're at 1.9 spaces per unit. That's more than average for a development of this similar size in the greater Boston area. That might be reduced to 1.6 or 1.5, which would still be acceptable. However, by angling the parking spaces, you're gaining another 2 to 3 feet in the travel lane, which will greatly enhance the convenience, the way it is now, you're going to have a very narrow parking lane and very little room for maneuvering the cars into parking. The question does remain still of snow storage. Where are they going to be plowing the snow? Are they going to be removing it? Even if they truck it out, that doesn't happen on the first day. So that we are looking forward to seeing what they come back with some of these answers. But there was a lot of input from the police chief, and there was good dialogue between the two, between our peer review consultant and their traffic engineers. The next time around, we are focusing on the meeting on the May's meeting, which is on the 25th. We'll be focusing. There'll still be some wrap up on the continuing discussion on traffic and parking, but we will also be focusing on stormwater. In particular, there is. So I sent out all the peer reviews and a lot of the studies we have so far. So even the Conservation Commission, where they're not in their jurisdiction, okay. I'm not sure what this. Well, they. All right, so but there is some, for instance, there is a catch basin that it will be collecting stormwater from the site that goes right to the Nashua River. So that's the question. We want to bring the Conservation Commission to that discussion. So that is essentially where we're at now. And there's a few other points. There's a stream about 200 feet away. So we want to make sure that any construction, erosion, sedimentation and erosion from site is going to be monitored with their SWIP, which is their stormwater pollution prevention plan. So that's a summary of where we are. I think I just wanted to touch on. There seems to be a comment there that I'm talking about the traffic, the developments where in the analysis there was whatever the number, 4 or 5 different developments where the per unit count was per unit spaces per unit count was typically 1.5, I believe, and this is still at 1.9, but that'll probably decrease. So I'm not sure, Mr. Milato's, the point he's trying to make.
Taylor, would you like to speak to this?
Yeah, sorry, it's Sam. I
Hi,
guess
Sam.
my comment was just that and this was kind of brought up at the meeting, the study actually referenced it was 4 or 5 other locations, but they were all 100 to 200 unit developments. So obviously there's different efficiencies of scale, right, and parking needed on that size of development versus an 11 unit. And they weren't, as even the chairman of the ZBA kind of commented, most of those facilities were pretty far from, this rural area. They were framing, Natick, and, areas with different, public transportation access and, different amenities that would be closer to the facilities and that type of stuff. But I guess the main comment I even had at the meeting was that I would be surprised that you wouldn't have at least one point of reference in a study like that was of an abutting rural area. I mean, there's 4 or 5 different towns all, touching Lancaster and of, similar makeup, and none of them were referenced. So, I don't,
Right.
And I don't even know that the answer would result in anything different. I just felt that highly unusual and, that in something that's supposed to be kind of a fair review,
Ryan, were they asked to provide some references closer to Lancaster, or
No, this
or
was
smaller size?
This was from their traffic report. No, so they weren't asked. It's just what Sam is referencing to, that this is what they provided in their traffic in the traffic study. So no, they weren't asked. They just presented a traffic study, and this is the type of analysis that is typically provided. So no, they weren't asked to. I mean, I
They
think
may be, right.
during the meeting, they were asked, "Can you come?" Was suggested that they add something. Now, whether they come back with something, we don't know.
Yeah, the chairman kind of commented on it. The chairman commented on during the meeting, but I don't think anything has really been asked of them of any of the meetings as far as like changing anything yet, or it's all just been.
I would say that circulation and angled parking was pretty much an ask, and they seemed amenable to it. That was my takeaway. Again, that was what I felt, and I would be surprised if they didn't come back with that revision.
Yeah, and that was their consultant, I think, who was mentioning that.
Yeah.
Brian, is there a peer review of this was Van Ass's peer review, or this was so you're.
No, this is both of them in the room now. So typically at these
Okay.
meetings, you have their engineer
Right.
and the town's peer review. They kind of go back and forth.
Exactly, right. I just wanted to make sure I understood it. So this, you, at the last hearing, it was the peer review of the traffic study.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Okay. All right. And, okay, I understand now. And the point is that perhaps, I think what Sam is saying is that perhaps if the references were of a similar size town to Lancaster, or a similar size project in our geographic area, it might, we don't know, but it might result in a different.
Well, I mean, they're jamming in as much as they can on this half acre lot.
Right.
It's high density. They're putting in as much as they can. I think the general sense is that, it's in the end, they'll probably be forced, or not forced, but they'll probably be asked to decrease density, and they may very well be expecting that. Okay, it's they're contending that in order to get, as you know, Victoria, and the trustees know, that in order to make units affordable, you have to get as high, the denominator as high as possible, just because economic. They're holding to that. Now, whether we're going to be able to, no, again, the ZBA is, and no one, it's just what is best for the town. Okay, now is this high amount of density in the middle of the town? That's for the abutters and for the developers to decide upon. I mean, but is this going to be an economical project for them, or are they going to pull? And again, and it was brought up in the meeting before. The X factor is right now, which is maybe the bottom line, is the lack of sewer credits available in town for for housing production.
Yep.
So
Okay.
and there's no solution to that. But so all these other points may be moot points.
Right.
But of course they're working with the town in order to to best accommodate these issues. I know there were some abutters there who were concerned about lighting. So that's where they need. That's something we'll be pressing on the site design. They need to come up with a lighting plan. So there's still a ways to go.
Understood. Thank you, Brian. Anything else on Neck Farm? No? Okay. So, next is Laurel Hill. I submitted a letter to the trustees. I circulated a letter to the trustees, a draft of our comment to the planning board. And I think Carolyn would like to recuse at this point because it covers her work with Habitat. So Carolyn, if you want to sign off and then sign in and just stay in the meeting room, we'll bring you in from the meeting room.
Carolyn has less of a financial interest. I think she can just listen and just not talk. I mean, I'm going to do the same. I can't really contribute to this discussion because you're talking about a letter to the planning board on which I sit. But I'm still going to listen because somebody's got to take notes.
That's fine. Carolyn, it's up to you if you feel comfortable, but if you'd rather just belt and suspenders step out, that's fine too. I mean, it's really, it's your call. I'm not going to, say that you have to step out. But if you really want to recuse, that's completely understandable. And we can certainly bring you back in from the waiting room. If you'd rather just listen, it's your judgment call, however you want to handle it. You're muted right now.
For this particular discussion, I'll step out and then you can bring me back in.
Yeah, okay, sounds good. Okay, so any comments on the letter that I circulated in March? I tried to do what I thought was an exhaustive timeline, going back to when the developer requested the special permit. It was pretty clear what we agreed upon at those hearings. And it's clear in the permit, the way that it was written. I provided a copy of the permit, and it's on pages 6 and 7. You don't need to read it aloud, but it spells it out. The developer is to construct two affordable units that are exactly the same. At no time did we discuss bringing in a third-party nonprofit run by volunteer effort to construct 2 units. I don't need to rehash what's in the letter, but I will say I feel strongly about this. I think that we have to think ahead to who will be in those units and the family that will be living there, and what recourse do they have should something not perform in the unit, if their HVAC or something else, goes. We have to think about who they go to at that point. They're not going to Harbor Classic Homes. They're going to a third-party nonprofit. So, I mean, I don't see how this works under fair housing, and under the permit. You definitely would have to revise the permit. I think it sets a poor precedent going forward for developers to backpedal on their obligations to provide affordable housing. Are there any tweaks or any comments about the letter? Anyone feel strongly about changing something in it or editing it? This is really for Deb, Jason, and Kelly. Frank has stepped back as chair of the planning board because, of course, the letter is being written for his board. And Carolyn has stepped out because she's employed by Habitat for Humanity. And again, I have to be clear, I so very much respect Habitat. This has nothing to do with Habitat not being a great entity. Habitat is fantastic, but they are unsure. When I asked Habitat, as Habitat, could they even do this? They are not sure that they can even do it because they are capped on square footage, and these homes are larger than their square footage. So de facto, we're providing smaller homes, and right out of the gate, that is not the point of the 2 units. They're supposed to be indistinguishable. So Habitat is a wonderful solution in other contexts. I don't think it's fair in this context.
All I can say is, as usual, you were very thorough, and it's an excellent letter, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. Thank you, Deb.
I'm in agreement. I have no revisions to your letter. I appreciate the timeline. I think it's very well written, and I also agree with what you're saying. And kudos to Habitat. Again, agree, nothing wrong with them, but I don't think it's appropriate. And I also don't think it's appropriate for this current company to make the choice to say we should have a third party vendor. I think they should basically do what they set forth to do. So, thank you.
Thank you, Deb. Thank you, Kelly. Jason, any comments on the letter?
None for me.
Great, okay. So if there is a motion to submit the letter to the planning board, we can move forward.
So moved. Make the motion.
Second.
Thank you, Deb. Thank you, Jason. Any discussion? Hearing none, I need a vote on this because it's an official comment position statement from the Affordable Housing Trust. So we'll do a roll call. Trustee Williams,
Yes.
Trustee Allison,
Yes.
Trustee Petracca, yes. I'll change the date on the letter. I'll correct, there was a spelling mistake on warranty on page 3. I'll fix that and I'll get this submitted tomorrow morning to the planning board and to Brian. I did not see, Brian, I did not see Harbor Classic Homes on the planning board's next agenda. So I'm not sure when they plan to come back and ask to do this. They're not coming in at the next meeting, right? I didn't see them anyway.
No, they're before the conservation board on a enforcement order. They were basically, and today, and this week didn't help their cause. So there's storm drainage issues with that, and there's a
Again?
conservation issue. There's a sedimentation into the pond. They're waiting for that detention pond to stabilize before they can, and then they're looking at building the road. So no,
Okay.
they're waiting for that conservation issue to settle out before they come back to the planning board.
Okay, all right. I don't need to go into the details on that right now, but okay, that's great. So they're not coming back at the next meeting to
No.
try to move forward on this. Okay, great. So we'll get that submitted and let's bring Carolyn back in. Okay. Carolyn, are you there? Let us know when you're fully back on the bus.
So I have an interim question. Is it really South Main Street? Or is it Main Street? I don't believe there is a South Main Street.
No, and I continue to see it listed as South Main Street, so I just copied down what it was listed as, but I think it's Main Street.
Is
Is
this
it
like a
supposed to be
Harry
South
Potter project? The address keeps changing.
Is it supposed to
Really
be South
think I know where it
Lancaster?
is.
Is it supposed to be South Lancaster? Main Street, South Lancaster?
I have no idea
I
why
don't even know how that works. South
I think it's
Lancaster.
referred to as South
It's a
Main
postal
Street.
district.
I know, but
Right. Carolyn, can you hear us? Tell her it says she's still connecting.
she's still connecting to audio.
Is there an actual update?
Just that we have to get this onto our SHI. That's all. And the only other update is that the lottery deadline came and went. So it was March 18th. Monday, March 18th was the lottery deadline. And the lottery itself will be held on Friday, April 12th at 3:00 on Zoom. If anyone wants to watch a live affordable housing unit lottery, it will be public, which is a great thing, great protection. But it is on Zoom, and the Zoom address for anyone watching this recording or any of the trustees, if you go to the town website and look for the lottery application, which is on our webpage, but it's also on, I think for a while it was on a banner on the front of the webpage. If not, it's on our webpage on the left. Look for Ross Manor Lottery. Friday, April 12th via Zoom, they will, at 3:00, the applicant will be selected, and it's one unit. So anyone watching, if you were an applicant and you want to see who gets this, or you are just interested in watching a lottery, that will be done live. on Zoom on that date.
I hope they have high production values. What do we as a trust and or the developer have to do to have that unit put on the SHI?
So the same thing that we did for Cottage Lane and Carter Street, there's an application, like a template from the state. And I think Brian and I just need to complete that and get it submitted. It takes a bit of time. I mean, there's a bunch of questions they ask. You have to attach various documents to it and hearing history and all sorts of stuff, but we'll get that done and get it submitted. Brian, I'll get with you offline on that and we'll get the Ross Manor submitted. It's one more unit in our SHI. So,
Okay.
all right. Next is updates to existing subsidized housing inventory. I don't have any on our existing housing.
Victoria, should I put her back in the waiting room or cut her off or something and try to put her? Can she?
Is she having trouble coming in, or I'm not sure what the issue is.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
No, that's okay. I'll send her a note.
maybe she needs to just redo it. At least,
Yeah, I don't know. I just sent her a note. I just asked her if she was having trouble getting back in. I'm not sure. She hasn't answered.
I think it worked. Are you there, Carolyn?
Oh, there she is. Yeah, she's back. Hi, Carolyn.
Hello.
Okay, so we finished that, and while we were waiting, we just quickly discussed the next thing, which was this one unit at 197 Main Street. It's we just basically said that Brian and I are going to work on getting that into our SHI. And the housing lottery deadline passed, and the lottery itself will be held on Friday, April 12th at 3 o'clock on Zoom for anyone who wants to watch a live lottery, or it's on our website. If you just look at the tab for Ross Manor, it has the Zoom information in that application for anyone interested in watching the lottery selection, the lottery selection. All right, updates to existing SHI. I don't have any. There's nothing going on with our existing inventory that I know of. Correspondence, nothing. Any public comment this evening? None. Under new business, there is one thing. Kelly and I had a chance to follow up on something she brought up at the last meeting, which was the idea of forums, similar to what her department did with the Board of Health, a variety of community forums on affordable housing. So she and I had a meeting and just discussed different topics. Kelly, can I turn it over to you to maybe give a little summary of what you're thinking and what we came up with for ideas?
Yep. The lovely Carolyn is going to actually do a presentation for us in regards to her line of work. We are actually going to also have the executive director, hopefully, from Bigelow, come down and talk about what state public housing looks like, what the application process is like, kind of answer some questions over that. Victoria is thankfully going to also do some about just exactly what you all do. What is affordable housing? How does one get into it? What's the application process? Do a Q&A, and then we're also going to do hopefully a few other lines of kind of all things housing and aid that is out there, even Google searches, search engines. Some people just don't really know where to start or what it means or what the guidelines are. So I'm really looking forward to it. I actually started from our conversation, I started putting up together a little bit of a flyer, kind of a pamphlet. I will run it by you all once I basically have confirmed speakers, and we'll talk about dates. So thank you for those who have volunteered and given me ideas. And I will be in touch hopefully with that in the next week or so.
Great.
That's great. And maybe on that flyer, I don't know, if this dovetails with the housing production plan outreach effort also. So just we were discussing tonight with Nels, the forums, the community forums about the update to the housing production plan, Kelly.
Yes, absolutely. I think that would be fantastic to add to this.
Okay, great. Fantastic. Well, I'm really excited. I love working in teams, and it's nice to enlarge our team and have Kelly's folks involved. And, it's just, I love the idea of having so maybe we can have coffee or, drinks or something just to make it really friendly and informative, and just kind of let folks in town know about what we do, as you said, but also just kind of increase the educational awareness and level of conversation. So. All right, that's all for new business that I have. Not seeing anything else. All right, communications. We meet next on Thursday, May 2nd, 2024 at 7 o'clock on Zoom, and then on Thursday, June 6th at 7 o'clock on Zoom. I do want to mention the resident survey again. We keep mentioning it, but the resident survey for the Lancaster 2035 comprehensive plan, and I mention it because it does have housing in it, and it will have a housing section. So in addition to our housing production plan, which goes more in depth, there will be a part of the comprehensive plan that touches on housing. So fill out the survey. It's available online. It's also available in a paper format if folks need that. You can find it on the town website. You can also call Brian Keating. Super important document. Fill it out if you haven't done so. And then the next comprehensive permit hearing for Neck Farm is, I believe, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, Thursday, April 25th. Is that right? Thursday, April 25th at 7 o'clock in person at the in the Nashaway room, in the Prescott building, and also on Zoom. Is that right?
This is you talk about the ZBA meeting?
The ZBA meeting for Neck Farm.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, Thursday, April 25th. I have nothing else this evening. If there's nothing else, anybody going once, going twice? Otherwise, a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. And any discussion? None. We'll quickly adjourn. We have Trustee Allison,
Yes.
Trustee Reed,
Yes.
Trustees and Secretary Streeter,
Yes.
Trustee Williams,
Yes.
and Trustee Petracca. Yes, we are adjourned. Housing Trust. I have 2023. Frank, correct that in the minutes if you have something else.